Hi, today Fio and I are going to introduce and then run a power raising process, which is out of our book, Magic of the Iron Pentacle. And the Iron Pentacle has 5 points, one of which is power. It's usually placed in the right hand, and the idea of raising power is something that we do in magic and ritual anyway. So we're going to talk a bit about the concept of raising power and how and why you might do it, and then we're actually going to do it.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I feel like often the concept of raising power is skipped over or not really thoroughly gone into. The way I understand it for myself and how I try to kind of model it is that I am working with a kind of intimate, sensuous, sometimes for me, erotic relationship with the life force. So that's what I mean when I say power. I mean a relationship with the life force. And so when I'm raising it, there's also a few other things going on. I'm usually focusing and becoming quite grounded and aligned. And then I'm remembering that I'm very connected. And then through that kind of reinvigoration of that awareness of connection, I'm drawing and collecting and gathering focus and power and awareness. And then what I might be doing, like this is how it feels for me at least, I might be starting to, I guess, brew it. I work a lot with cauldrons, so I feel like I'm brewing it in all my cauldrons. And then I start to feel like it's spiraling. And at a point, this is when I would call it raising power. So I guess I'm focusing, I'm collecting, I'm gathering power. And then when I start to raise power, it does feel like I'm beginning to almost lift it, or it's lifting me. And so it feels like some traditions would say cone of power, which is a Gardnerian saying. And so it kind of lifts like an upside down ice cream cone. That's how it feels and looks in my visualization. And so I'm moving it up until there's a particular point where I intuitively feel that it needs to be released. And that can feel, for some of us who are sexual, like orgasm. And so there's a point where I might be actually going to the point of release and then folding back, and then to the point of release and then folding back. And I can do this alone or with a group. I can also do this with a tree or a river or the wind or the sunlight. So that's something to remember, is that you can actually do it alone, but leaning into your connections with your allies, with the elements of life, with your ancestors, with the web of life. So that's how it feels for me. That's how I would think about it and talk about it. How about you, Jane?
Yeah, I like that you use that word focus. Because for me, like how you're describing raising energy is something that I'm really comfortable doing with groups. It might be small groups or a group of 100, or even 2 or 3 other people. But when I'm on my own, like I might dance or sing or chant, but for me, instead of that kind of going outwards, there's a real coming inwards. And the intensifying and the focus for me gets kind of closer and closer, until I'm kind of living and breathing it. I feel like that intention is becoming my reality, and it's a very embodied thing, like it's becoming my reality in my body. And that might occasionally like kind of look like a lot of things if someone was there looking, but sometimes it really doesn't. Sometimes I'm like kind of like rocking on my heels or squatting, and sometimes I'm quite kind of closed up, and it feels like I'm birthing myself a bit, or kind of bringing myself through, and using breath and sound. Sometimes I just do a little whispered chant that repeats and repeats, and it feels like I'm kind of rewriting my reality into that spell or that process. And if anyone was looking, I don't know what it would look like, but it probably wouldn't look like they'd say, oh, she's raising power. But that honing that focus and holding it, and when you said, like, I think you used the word folding, like folding it in like many layers, and just, I don't know, like giving myself over to it. Like there's a seduction in it, a kind of completion, a kind of meeting. And so I think that like what we're trying to get at about this raising power, what we're calling raising power, is it's where the intention becomes the reality, and that it's no longer like, oh, I'm intending to raise energy to empower myself, but I'm having an experience of empowerment in that moment. And then hopefully, ideally, I can transition that moment out beyond the ritual or the energy raising into the rest of the day and the world and my life.
Yeah, for those of us who might be sometimes elementally minded, I've often thought about it as Earth. I'm here. I am now. I am, and I'm an Earth being. I have body. Body is, and then air. I start to think and conceive of what it is that I am trying to walk into or move into or draw into myself or experience. And then fire is when I start to think about collecting, gathering, focusing, raising. So so that can be like a candle flame and very very held within, or it can be like a bonfire, really whatever, or it can be starfire or lightning. But that's when I think about fire. And then water for me is that like, oh, like that, just like letting it go, letting the cycles of precipitation and condensation and and evaporation, letting that take over. And then spirit, I guess, is the mystery. That's when I actively trust. So often you'll hear out there people say, forget about your spells when you've done them. You just forget about them. You put them away. You don't dig up seeds you've buried because then they won't grow. And I think
set and forget.
yeah, exactly. And I've always abided by that, but I always like to remind people and myself, it's okay if you think about your spells. When you do, just go back into active trust. Like just go, actually, I've got my end of it, and then the mystery has their end of it, and we're just going to keep rolling along. So on that note, what we thought we would collect, focus, hone, raise power for is empowerment. That's a very broad kind of statement, but I guess what that could mean is you might have a particular endeavor or a passion project or something that you feel really into right now that you want to feel empowered with or empowered towards. Or it might be that you just feel like you want to draw in, I guess, more self-esteem or anchor into your capacity as a living human animal and empower your sense of self and your sense of willingness and your sense of I can. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it also could be around leadership issues, that kind of stepping forward into the world. Like I can be someone who's really confident kind of on my own or in a small group and really have that desire to, follow and promote my passions and to advocate for them. But that step of empowerment of feeling like, oh, yes, I'm willing to trust myself in this. I'm able to take those steps. For me, this right hand in the Iron Pentacle is very much about like learning to trust myself and experience that sense of power within, assisting me to take those steps into the outside world, whatever that is or looks like. Yeah. So our invitation is for you to maybe even pause the video and spend a moment thinking about empowerment, power, my right hand, my coming out, coming into the world, being in the world. What is something that's alive for me right now that I would like, that you would like to maybe take that step with, maybe take that dare with of moving into an active, intentional energy raising moment with it. So Fio and I obviously discussed this before we came on. So we're like a bit set on this. So therefore we're going to move into the energy raising now. But the invitation is that you might want to pause, maybe journal for a moment or breathe for a moment, ground, feel into what is alive for you. And if you're someone who runs the Iron Pentacle, what is alive for you in the right hand or in the point of power that you want to bring through?
Okay, so I'm going to drum, and I guess often when there's a drum, it's there to support rhythm and to support sound and to support the space. So kind of, I invite you to consider that this drum is there to support your process, basically. And so we're going to tone, and that is wordless vibration from our mouths. And so for those of us who make that and that can be heard, toning can sound really quiet, and in fact it should kind of go up and down, in and out in volume and expression, because you don't want to tire yourself out. So it could just be very simple, like ooh, or it could start to get deeper, or it could start to grow up and out like and you can harmonize, you can trill, you can do whatever you like, but that sound will carry power. That's the idea. It will carry power. The drum will carry power. Your stillness could carry power. Your movement could carry power. You might just be really still and hold a particular gesture, or you might actually walk around your circle and shapeshift into an animal. Like we do it so many different ways. Some people might be working with chords or rubbing candles or whatever. So whatever turns you on to the life force.
Or even writing or drawing through it. You know, so there's some people's way of manifesting that.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to start slow and build. That's the idea. Slow and build. And at a point, Jane, Meredith, and I are just going to release it. And that's us doing it. But of course, we invite you to just do your process. So
Yeah.
this is us modeling a process that you're just going to have, ideally, organically. Okay. So remembering we're gathering and focusing our awareness. Remembering we are connected. And then we let it go, we release it. For me, I call it active trust. I just kind of surrender into this process of trusting. We let it go. Maybe it feels like it goes down and out. Maybe it feels like it kind of explodes. Maybe it's really quiet and soft. So after releasing power, it's a really good idea to earth or ground again. And so after, you might go eat or drink water and sit or journal or kind of massage yourself or hug a friend or a lover if they're available or a furry friend. Whatever helps you to ground and kind of come back so that you're not diffused or not, that you can function in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, and another great thing to do might be after you've done some of those grounding practices to quickly run the iron pentacle even just like for a couple of minutes, just to like rebalance and also check in with that PowerPoint. How's it doing?
Thank you for joining us again.
Yeah, thanks so much. Bye.
Yeah.